All right, you're good to go.
Yeah, we still have a. Good evening. Welcome to the regular council meeting for February the 23rd. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Counselor Hay, so moved.
I'll second.
Are there any late items? Hearing that there's no late items, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
All motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We don't have any delegations, so we're on to public comment.
Great. So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda for up to 2 minutes. If you would like to speak today, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. And you can find that by clicking on reactions at the bottom of your screen and then clicking raise hand. So when it's your turn, I'll read your name and I'll ask you to unmute yourself. You'll get a pop-up on your screen asking you to unmute. You will have 2 minutes to speak. I'll give you a 30-second warning, and at the end of the 2 minutes, your microphone will be automatically disabled. So I see the first speaker today will be Noni McCann. Noni, I'll ask you to unmute now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak again. Tonight, I just wanted to make a comment about the agenda item that talks about the community plan. And I am quite sure that I didn't particularly understand that 100%, but our council person, Gray, explained a few things to me today about that. And while that may or may not be something that the council chooses to adopt or to move forward with, I really strongly recommend that some kind of community engagement planning process be considered. I know that we've been waiting and waiting for the people from the, oh goodness, I can't remember their name now. Okay. The organization that was supposed to do this in the summertime that's been helping you out and never signed off yet. Who are those people? Do you know what I'm talking about, Mr. Polderman?
Are you talking about the Fraser Basin Council?
Thank you very much for reminding me of the Fraser Basin Council. Yes. So I've been waiting and waiting, and I'm sure you have too, for this community engagement process they've been promising us. But whatever you choose to do, I surely hope that it can happen sometime in the very near future and that we can be engaged with you in moving forward. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker today will be Judith Urquhart. Judith, I'll ask you to unmute now.
Mayor and Council, I am Judith Urquhart, former resident of 87 Main Street, Lytton. My public comment regards item 10 on tonight's agenda, reports from mayor and councillors. Mayor Polderman, how was Councillor Hay allowed to make personal comment in his, quote, councillor report, unquote, in recent council meetings, and you did not call him to order? Reports from mayor and councillors on the agenda should be for the business of the village, reporting what they worked on in the last 2 meetings, between the last 2 meetings or last 2 weeks. Corporation of the Village of Lytton Bylaw 692/2017, Council Procedure Bylaw Section 22, Conduct and Debate 7, Section C, must speak only in connection with the matter being debated. How does questioning CBC's guidelines and a citizen's opinion fit into a councillor's responsibilities? How does describing every employee and their contribution over the 6 months fit into reporting what residents need to know about rebuilding? Mayor Polderman, you need to keep order.
You
And
have 30
Councillor
seconds.
Hay, you need to get back on village business. These digressions waste time, which should be spent on returning residents and businesses back to the village of Lytton. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker today will be Ernie Wagner. Ernie, I'm going to ask you to unmute now.
Yes, Mayor and Council and James, hi. This item 7.1, this will be a question for James, to do with the environmental consultant IBI. Just wondering what $2.5 million is for. I couldn't make an estimate there. If it's for the 112 properties, that'd be 22,000 each property. So I don't know what else there is, but talking to Chris Duffy of Clearview Demolition, and he says the average is about 2,000 per property. So say you double that for Lytton, that would be about 450,000. Just wondering what the other 2 million was for.
Thank you for your comments. If there are any other speakers tonight, please raise your hand on Zoom now. You can find that by clicking reactions and then clicking raise hand. I'll wait another 10 seconds just in case. I'm not seeing any other hands raised, so that completes the public comment portion of the meeting. Thank you.
So we're on to item 5, adoption of the minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting on February the 9th, pages 6 to 11. Are there any corrections? Councillor Hay?
Thank you. We're going to get several. Page 6, 2.2, the council meeting should be just as presented. The amendment should be removed. 5.1 was a motion. The word carry should be out in the right-hand column. Eight one, same thing. Carry should be on the outside column. 10.1, bullet 1 should be 2.1 million, not 1.2. Just a typo. And 10.2 should have the carry on the outside, as well as the last one under 14 closed meeting, and page 11 should have carry. Thank you.
Lillian, do you have any corrections?
No, I think that covers it. Thanks.
Ian covered my corrections, so can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting as amended for February the 9th?
Councillor Hayes, so move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Now the minutes of the special council meeting for February the 15th. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the minutes of the special council meeting for February the 15th? Can I get a
I'll
motion?
motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Hayes, second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So now we have business arising from the minutes, the unfinished business. It's 6(1)A is the BC Hydro Infrastructure Restoration. We have two options in front of us. Page 15. And option one is that the council will direct staff to correspond with BC Hydro to rebuild overhead light-for-light distribution system at no cost to the village of Lytton and its residents. And option two, the council directs staff to correspond with BC Hydro to rebuild with and underground distribution system at an approximate cost of 4.4 million, including a standard connection charge to a dwelling. So those are the two options. Is there any discussion regarding the two options?
Councillor Hay, I'll make a motion for option one.
I'll second.
Discussion? Councillor Hay?
Got one point on page, and I believe page 15 at the bottom says cost to residents, no cost. So I believe he said there would be a cost to commercial. Sorry.
Yeah, I believe, yes, there was, yeah.
So you could just-
Yeah, it was a tariff, yeah.
I had actually called up BC Hydro regarding both of these two options, and this is the option one is the least expensive option. However, there are some hybrid options where part goes above ground and part goes underground. But I think when that option of going underground could always be taken on at a later date. So in order to facilitate residents moving back into their houses as quickly as possible, that the overhead system be chosen.
If BC Hydro had all these months to think upon this, since I'm pretty sure that they were well aware that the town had burned down, why didn't they have the design ready? They knew that we were looking at doing the underground services to protect against future wildfires. Why didn't they take steps, last year, like September, August?
I could make a comment on that. From what I understand, they weren't formally approached about it, so they were looking at the light to light. But we could check with them on that.
I just find that they are treating us like we're one of these backwater towns that are unimportant. If this had happened in the city, they'd be looking at burying the infrastructure without even being asked. This should have been something that was on their plate and brought to us, and the cost is ridiculous. If we're digging up our infrastructure anyway to put in repairs and replacements, then they could certainly lay their wires at the same time.
Well, I guess that's a question that BC Hydro has to answer.
Yeah, I won't hold my breath.
So is there any further discussion on these two options? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we're on to item 6.2, the integrated design planning. Yes.
Okay, so you have before you a staff report. On the 12th of January, council had passed a resolution that staff be directed to investigate the costs, logistics, and what staff time is needed to bring in the integrated design plan team with a report back to council at the February 9th meeting. So this is a little bit late, but we corresponded back and forth with Mr. Deeks, and on the 27th of January, he provided me an outline of what they're looking for. So basically, they require direction from council, if council wants to engage in this project, they're looking at, you'd have to garner the full-scale project costs and timelines would be to provide a proper cost proposal to facilitate the IDP. The village must first determine what the objectives are and what would the village be designing towards or for. Second was initial design charrette with a key group of stakeholders to identify what the purpose and outcome of the IDP is needed for. And it was noted that the consultant who would facilitate the IDP would also facilitate this initial meeting if it were to take place. Then the community leaders, such as the mayor and council, would need to be influencers who would need to ensure that essentially all property owners would go on board in order for this to be a successful proposal. And then in advance of the preliminary meeting, the proponent requires a ballpark budget as to its critical, to shape the ultimate outcomes. So I asked if we could have an idea what they meant by a budget, and they just said, just tell us what your budget is, and then we would design the program to the budget. So I feel that hasn't really left council with any adequate information. And yeah, and so the resolution would be a decision of council whether you want to move forward with this or not.
Then, does anyone have any comments on this issue?
Leslie?
Yes.
Did they give us a timeline moving forward, what we'd be looking at?
No, not until you can provide them a budget, because the
Yeah.
budget would tell them what they actually could do. So they couldn't provide a timeline without a budget.
Okay. Do we know if the province would cover any of this?
I do not know.
Okay.
I can look into that if you wish.
That might be wise if we knew what the province would be willing to cough up. We might be able to figure out a budget better. Can we table this to the next meeting?
Yes, we can. My sort of question on this matter is this is an integrated design for and building process for private residences as well. You know, do we have many residents who are going to, you know, sign on to this proposal?
Well, it would be up to the community to decide. That's what we would need to do the community engagement about and see. It would mean that we could get a shorter build time for the entire town as opposed to everybody trying to do their own thing and maybe not being able to get a contractor or getting short on supplies. So I guess it all depends on how we want to approach it. We're going to be doing our own municipal buildings. People will be building commercial buildings. If we function together, we might be able to get this done in a more timely fashion. But we're going to have to get the residents to let us know if they're willing to participate or not.
I was under the understanding that part of this integrated design and building process was also to reduce costs for the homeowners as well.
Yep. When you do a project approach like this, because you do mass ordering of supplies and you share labor, there are reduced costs. There's also a lot of reduced waste, which is where a lot of money is lost, and your timeline gets shortened. So, I mean, it would work for us if we did it. We're practically the poster children for this kind of thing, but the community has to be on board. They have to be willing to listen to what people have to say, and they have to be willing to be part of the solution and work together. So that's what it's going to come down to.
So it's my understanding then that this process is not so much the design of the houses as it is to coordinating the building of the house. Because I don't think,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of residents that want us calling them, what color house that they need to build.
That's up to them. That's not up to
Right.
us.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is just so that, the residents that are watching, have a better understanding of what this process is all about.
Well, if you want to think of it, I've just actually used this explanation in an email. If you want to think of it like an orchestra, the contractors are the members of the orchestra, and the person who oversees the project is the conductor. So the conductor makes sure that the members have what they need. Each member does their part, but they work to support the entirety of the project. So you would have, let's say, this is just roughly explaining. You'd have the people come in and they would they would pour foundations. So they would pour, 1 foundation, 2 foundation, 3 foundation. They would go through and they pour all the foundations, and then behind them would come the people putting up the walls, and then behind them would come, the roof trusses. So it would be staged so that each section got done smoothly, because we would have, we are located in a very odd spot. Getting construction supplies is going to be hard. But when you order like that, you can get an entire semi full of supplies brought up and dropped off at the site, instead of having each small contractor try and bring in or actually get supplies for one house. So it will work. The question is can we get people to accept it? It doesn't matter what you want your house to look like. A house is either a square or a rectangle, unless you're building a round house. They all start the same. So how you want your house to look, that's up to you.
So could we maybe put this process online and ask people if they, are interested, and put that group of people together?
Sure.
Would that be a way to gauge the interest from our residents?
Yeah, I mean, do we have an email that we could link it to and just say, if you're interested? All people need to do really is decide what their house looks like. Then the person who oversees the project will be in touch with the insurers, so that the insurance companies can say how much they're going to pay for, what they're going to pay for. There's a lot of pressure that gets taken off the little guy, and or I should say the homeowner or the business owner, to get that building done. It's a nice way to work. It's very cooperative. If we can ask people if they want to be part of it, and then they can yay or nay, and we can extrapolate from that, that would certainly simplify things.
So would you like to make a motion to put it on the village website?
Sure. I'll motion that we put an explanation of the integrated design project approach on the village website, with contact information for residents who are interested in participating. So is that brief enough?
That's brief enough.
Councillor Hay, second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we're on to item 7, which are staff reports. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship. I see Mr. High is on, so I'm going to get him to speak to the safe return and reentry, and the emergency temporary housing section, and then I can look at the rest.
Hi, Leslie. Hi, Mayor, Council, residents. I'll start with the safe reentry. So there's a number of updates to share. I guess starting with the first one was the February 15th council approval for the direct award of consulting and contractor contracts. And so the village staff, as directed, are entering into those discussions and working through the contracts for both IBI and MatCon. We're also preparing a notice of intent to post a BC bid so that the broader market knows of our intentions and can respond to us if needed. I expect that all of those contracts will be completed in draft format and in front of the CAO for review and execution within the next 2 weeks or shorter. Additionally, in line with that work that we're hoping to expedite on the municipal properties, village staff are coordinating with the Municipal Insurance Association for agreement on completing debris removal on the municipal properties as they are insured properties. We're also developing a work plan to expedite the debris removal from municipal properties. That work plan has now been submitted to the Cumsteen Heritage Committee for their review and comment. Expectation is that we will require monitoring during the surface debris removal on those properties. Also on debris cleanup, BC Hydro is currently coordinating with an external contractor. I believe they've been to site to look at the downed power lines and poles to put a work plan together to remove that material from site. As well, ICBC has been in contact with the municipality about removing municipal assets, the vehicles that were pulled out of the public works shed to remove those from site at this point. The next item was about the fire hall. So village staff have worked directly with the BC Wildfire Service to accommodate the fire department for an interim basis. We're looking to enter into a lease agreement for up to 1 year. At this point, it sounds like there'd be opportunity for extension if that's required. So we would be storing the new fire truck in the Quonset hut at the Lytton Fire Base. And then there would be some allotted land use outside of that base, as well as access to the main level of the fire base. So we're just confirming insurances and requirements for that lease agreement. And it would be a no-cost lease agreement to the village. So those are the safe return re-entry action items that have occurred over the last couple of weeks since the last report. Are there any questions on those? Leslie, do you want me to jump straight down to the housing side?
Yes, please.
So item number 2 on the short-term recovery plan was emergency and temporary housing. So we've identified a few forms of housing. Obviously, there's the interim housing requirement for folks that want to return to Lytton but aren't ready to rebuild their homes. There's the essential worker housing, so folks that work in the community, RCMP, nurses, teachers, folks that may provide those services but didn't necessarily own a home in town but would still require accommodation. And then there's also the mid to long-term housing plan. What are the options that we have for building accommodation with service providers such as seniors housing or subsidized housing in the community, working with BC Housing, CMHC, and other funders to make those plans so that we can start actioning them as soon as the village is ready for rebuilding. And so the key actions to drive that process are a housing manager. We've identified Jack Keogh, who's a director of special projects with Yellowhead Community Services, to undertake the role of a housing development manager. And we intend to bring a staff report to council around that, the appointment of that role for the March 9th meeting. We're also looking at providing business cases for each of those 3 options. So looking at the options, the pricing, the locations, access to services as part of that. And also, obviously, the longstanding requirement to do a needs assessment. And so really still trying to drive an understanding of what the need in the community is for each of these 3 housing areas. With the funds that have come through the municipal affairs, we are now in a position to hire that housing manager and hopefully can expedite the process. Leslie, that's my update. Are there any questions?
My question, James, is at the beginning of March, or is the process in place so residents and insurance companies can, how do you say that, apply, to the village to start debris removal?
Yeah, Mayor, the process is in place. We've removed the requirement for a building permit to be applied for from the village. So really the village isn't putting very many requirements in front of people to move the process forward. From a staff point of view, the contracts that we've been approved to enter into really do give us the tools to start mobilizing in a early March basis to start that initial surface debris removal. As the Heritage Branch gets the overlying umbrella permit established for archaeology, that will be the mechanism that will allow the insurers and ourselves to start doing subsurface remediation. So pulling out the foundations and testing the soils and removing any contaminated soils. So yes, we're certainly able to start moving with the surface debris removal immediately. And I expect that the subsurface debris removal will be in place imminently. The insurers had intended to start in early March. I haven't heard any news that counters that at this point, but I also I don't understand if there's a work plan been submitted to the Heritage Committee yet from JS Held and the other insurance providers.
That's reassuring to hear.
It feels very good, Mayor, to be in this position.
Thank you.
Okay, so further updates are under the financial in-kind support is the donation and in-kind support. The CFO, Terry Haas, is tracking the cash and in-kind supports and working on a summary for council. We had closed the advertisement to recruit people for the Unmet Needs Committee last Friday, and I did receive, I believe, 4 submissions. So a report will be going to council on that. The Citizen Advisory Committee terms of reference will be before council tonight. Under essential services, we had Christy Palmetier from ENBC that's coordinating with Denise O'Connor and Red Cross, Community Futures, United Way, and the disaster cycle planning folks. So that's been flushed out quite a bit. Just further quick updates, local government village for external threats to develop the building bylaws. So as most people know, the draft building bylaw 7, 10, and 11 went to council last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. And we extended our input to March the 4th. The plan would be to then put second and third reading on March 9th, if it so works that way, and then possibly adoption on March 23rd. That's if everything flows well. The annual reporting from 2020 was completed thanks to Mr. Haas, making sure that the social report and such, the LDGs and things like that that are required on the operations side of the village. Further to that, we have Grant Match BC doing the grant writing, which isn't a cost to the village, so that's great. And with the muni funds, we are looking at hiring communication support, admin support, finance support, building permit support, and a housing project manager, as you've already heard today. The economic development officer position closed last Friday, and we have submissions to that. I'll be working with the rural development staff to review those and do some interviews. And we are also in the probably more medium-term stages for securing an office for the municipal hall in the village of Lytton. Under critical infrastructure, we're still working through that with urban systems, and I think that's good. Also, we were doing the report as a report that was going on the website prior to Christmas. We are going to now start putting that report back on the website, as citizens have been asking to have, so they can actually read it. So we're flushing it out and putting it on the website for people to have. Any questions?
I have a quick question, Leslie. You may not actually know this. I know that we were at one point discussing having specialized equipment brought in to look at the sewer system and see if how much damage had been done. Has that moved forward at all?
The CTV scanning, so James High would be able to answer that.
Yeah, Councillor Gray, no, that work has not moved forward. We have got a budget for it and a contact for it. We're just waiting for budgets to be confirmed to move forward with that work, but it is in the work plan still.
Okay, super, thank you.
Seeing that there's no further questions, we're on to item 7.2, which is our Chief Financial Officer. He's going to speak to 7.2A.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a staff report relative to acquiring a CCAN. I know since my time here, this has been an agenda item a few times. So there's a specific request for a 20-foot CCAN to accommodate the fire department apparatus and equipment, including some donated equipment that they're currently receiving through, is it Fire BC? I forget.
The Fire Chief Association.
Fire Chief Association and so on. And so James High and his team has gone out and obtained quotes for CCANs. And so the staff report and the recommendation before you is to authorize up to $10,000 to acquire a CCAN.
So this could be less than that. It's just,
We don't think it's probably going to be closer to $8,900, I believe, is the quote that James' team provided. But we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of a buffer, given the supply and of course delivery cost to get the CCAN there. And sorry, the last piece I should mention is the recommendation is to fund this acquisition through the donation, restricted donations that the village has received to date from various sources.
Councillor Hayes will move.
I'll second.
I have a question. Is this CCAN, like there's a big difference in CCANs when you buy them? Some look sort of ratty because they haven't been painted. Is this sort of purchase for this price? Is it a properly painted CCAN?
James, do you know, is this a new can or is this a refurbished can? I don't recall.
I don't know specifically, Mayor, whether it's new or refurbished, but we can be selective in the one that we acquire to make sure that it's not ratty and that it is, I believe it'll actually be visible from alongside the Quonset hut at the BC Wildfire Service. So we'd want to make sure that it is suitable to be located in that location.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
One question under discussion says BC Wildfire advised the village of Lytton Fire Department that it needs to reclaim space at the village of Lytton Fire Department is currently utilizing. Two questions here. One is where is our new, old, and rescue truck going to end up being stored, and where is the CCAN going?
Right.
Secure.
So the planning is that the new fire truck will be stored within the structure at the Lytton Fire Center, and the old truck will be stored outside.
Understood that room inside there.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that answers that question, Councillor Hay. And then the second question was, remind me please?
CCAN, where we put that?
Yeah, so that, again, James and his team have communicated and is coordinating with BC Wildfire to establish exactly where on the site that CCAN will go. They've told us that they do have the space to accommodate it.
So I can process that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an evolving conversation.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Would someone like to make a motion regarding it? Oh, we have.
carry it.
Since there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we're on to 7.2B, the 5-year financial plan timeline.
Thank you, Your Worship, and just again, this has been an evolving document between Madam CAO and myself, and so there's a very late, I guess, version of the document as we're trying to comply with the legislation and the time to accomplish all of the tasks. So you have before you legal draft dated February 22nd, and I'm not sure that you want me to go through the entire the dates and the tasks to be accomplished. I think they stand for themselves, but I'm happy to go through them if you'd like. And so Is this for-
I don't.
This is just for receipt? Yeah. So, unless there's any questions or recommendations or comments regarding the draft financial plan timeline?
I have a quick question, Terry.
Thank you.
I gather that March 9th is an all-day session. I'm just looking at what's in there for at least a good 4 hours. Is that correct?
And we have council that night, so it would be
Yeah.
4 hours.
Yeah, I would suggest Councilor Gray would be at least 4 hours. And Madam CAO and I are going to be working on that very quickly in terms of what that looks like. So I would suggest it would be a start time of 1 p.m. I would think.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any flexibility on that date?
I know for myself, I can't do it any sooner than that. I mean, there's a lot of work and preparation that has to happen before that date.
I was going to ask if it could be moved to the 18th, but is that too far down?
I guess it,
If not, I'll talk to my my big boss and see if I can get some time off.
I think part of our thinking is March 9th is the next council meeting here in Kamloops. So staff and the mayor and Councilor Hayne, I'm assuming, would be here in person. So I think that was part of the strategic thinking on that. So I'm not sure if we did it on the 18th, would it be completely by Zoom or would we still come here?
I think it would be important to be face to face if at all possible. And I think, Councilor Gray, if you're thinking the 18th, which is a Friday, were you thinking you'd be able to be in person?
No, but I would have the time.
Okay.
You know what? I'll just I'll talk to my sergeant about the 9th. You think 1 p.m.?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So, and we're gonna be posting the budget on our website for 10 days, starting on the 24th of March till 4th of April.
And then there's an online Zoom meeting on March 31st that we'll make sure we publish for the public to come on and ask questions on the budget.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to 7.3. This is being put forward by the corporate officer, and it has to do with our elections in special circumstances. That pursuant to the authority granted by the BC Regulation 218/2021 Council resolved with respect to sections 125(1)(b), 121(c), 125(2)(a) of the Local Government Act. An election official may direct a person to either provide a written declaration of the facts set out in sections 125(1)(b), 125(1)(c), 125(2)(a) respectively, or to make an oral declaration of the facts set out in the same sections respectively. And then B, where the election official determines that a person may make an oral declaration as set out in subsection A2 of this resolution, the election official shall make a record that person made an oral declaration of the facts declared.
Just to speak to that quickly, what this is about is the COVID-19. So basically it gives the chief elections officer the opportunity to say that if it's still COVID is an issue, instead of people handling paper and pens and having to wash everything that gets touched, they could actually just do an oral declaration, and the election staff would do declare that as being orally done properly under this section. It's kind of a good step to take in case COVID is still an issue.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Oh, I'd like a motion first, sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Councillor Hay, I'll second that motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
So the next item that we is being brought before us is the council remuneration bylaw 709/2022. Would you like to speak to that?
Yep. So in our process of recovering and doing the research on bylaws and policies, we've found that the last council enumeration bylaw wasn't actually adopted. So we brought this forward. There's no change to the bylaw other than making sure that the annual increase under the BC consumer price indexing is properly written into the bylaw. So this is essentially just making sure that everything is in place for when you got your new councillors coming on.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this remuneration bylaw?
These rates are for 2022,
They'll be for 2022. They're not changing.
and then the CPI will kick in
That's
2023.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, because the bylaw won't take place until they've adopted it.
So could I get someone to make a motion?
All motion that council remuneration bylaw 709/2022 be introduced and be read a first time. And that council remuneration bylaw 709/2022 receive second and third reading.
Councillor Hay, second that motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So we're on to 8.1B, which is the revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 712/2022. That the Village of Lytton revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw 712/22 be adopted. Would the CFO like to speak to this?
Thank you, your worship. So this staff report came to you, I believe, last session and received first, second, and third reading, and today is just for the purposes of adoption. So unless there's further questions or comments, concerns regarding the staff report and the purpose of it, happy to take those.
One question, if I may. It talks about each time we need more, you have to resubmit a new application. Would that be a bylaw? Or is a bylaw just once? Sorry, I don't mean to catch you off guard with that.
No, thank you, Councillor Hay. It's my understanding that the bylaw is the overarching global approval to allow this to happen, but staff would certainly come back to mayor and council before applying for a second or subsequent borrow.
I just, if I could, it says the MFA advised that this is a non-revolving line of credit, and each time the village requires additional cash flow financing, a new application will be required. So the bylaws once, and then we just issue applications every time we need more money. Super, thank you.
Yes, Council.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need the mover and second.
That was-
Would you? Okay.
Councillor Hay.
Councillor Hay.
Sorry, I didn't catch that one.
Too quick. Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to item 9, correspondence for action. This is raising money for Lytton Michael Benny. And that has to do with a picture that he has painted and he wishes to raise revenue on. Is there,
The request to council is that council participate in the program by him allowing to use just the Village of Lytton's name and logo. And he would sell the prints for $20 each, and 50% would come back to the village.
Councillor Hay?
Question if I could. Two I have actually. One is there any liabilities to us? And the second question is, how long the time frame? 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, like?
So the recommendation to council would be that you would put a sunset on it for a time frame and require an accounting of the funds that are being raised. I would recommend, I haven't been involved with this actually happening before. So I would recommend that it would be checked out to see what the liability potentially could be. Because it's different for a municipal government than it is for a society. I don't know if either Mr. Hawes or Mr. Matuzzi have had dealings with this before.
My thought is, to Madam CEO's comment, we need more information, and like I see in this, where does this gentleman live, and is this strictly to the one print as opposed to multiple prints?
Yeah.
We need more information, I believe.
Need a motion to get more information.
If you would like us to get more information, I would need a motion for that, or you can just receive it as correspondence and thank the author for their time and effort. It's up to you.
You put me between the rock and a hard place. I'd like to make a motion that staff pass it on to legal for the liabilities and get a small contract drawn up that looks after our interest.
Sorry, Ian, I lost that last part. Get a contract drawn up.
Contract drawn up, but sorry, the liabilities go, and I can't remember the rest of it, Madam CAO.
So with parameters to ensure that the municipal government is in good stead, yeah.
Okay, I'll second.
Do we have any, like, the money raised from this? Are we going to allocate it to anything tonight? No. Okay.
That's where you find out we're gonna enter into a.
Right.
That people hope something, we don't go into it.
Okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we have the city of Victoria. Which is looking to support the legal challenge against the discrimination of freedom of religion in Quebec, Bill 21. Someone like to make.
Councilor, hey, I'll make a motion, we file, accept and file the information.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 91C is investing in Canada, the Clean BC Community Fund. The recommendation is that staff be directed to forward this grant opportunity to Grant Match BC to research what needs of the village would fit this grant program for submission.
I'd like to add and bring back a report to council.
Okay.
If you want to motion it. You have until May 25th to apply. The grant covers specific items like management of renewable energy, access to clean energy transportation, energy efficiency buildings, and generation of clean energy. So it would be interesting to look into how it might fit with some of the stuff through Grant Match BC, and it does require 27% dollars.
Just to advise Mayor and Council, I have been communicating with our person at Grant Match, and this is on our work plan already. And I've also been talking to the province, the author of this document here, as well as his subordinates regarding this program. So I'll continue, the staff will continue on that process and report back. And we have filed a preliminary document so that we're in the queue. And that was approved by the province in terms of making sure that we were not going to be late for the purposes of applying for the grant. So that's subject to still identifying the need, as well as Madam CAO identified where the other 27% is coming from.
Thank you. Is there any?
Just a-
Go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, just a notation when I was looking at this, it's projects that start as early as summer 2023, and the grant approvals are not going to be out until that time. So we'd be looking at over a year waiting to hear on this.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, this Councillor Gray, this is a question that I've posed with some other grant applications that I've been working on in terms of what does commence mean? Does that mean a shovel on the ground? Does that mean we've engaged consultants? Like, what does commence mean? And
Yeah.
So what I can share is that universally people have a lot of sympathy and empathy for Lytton, and so as long typically the answer I'm getting is as long as we have a consultant underway, it's commenced. And so it doesn't mean we have to have a shovel.
Okay. Well, my only concern is that they're indicating that the sorry, I just have to pull it up on my other screen here. Grant approvals are anticipated starting in summer 2023. So we wouldn't actually know if we had the money until, you know, over a year from now. That's for us, it might be problematic if it was something that we were counting on. I just think that if we do use this, we need to approach it very cautiously so that we know that whatever we're using it on is not something urgent.
I think staff will have to get back to Mayor and Council with a more detailed report and document for discussion purposes. Certainly not prepared this evening for that discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So would someone like to make the motion?
I'll motion.
Councillor Hay, second the motion.
Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item D is from the Bishop Jane Alexander. It's regarding the parish hall.
Yeah, so as staff, we have had a discussion about this letter in particular, so either Mr. Hay or Mr. Matuzzi will respond, so council understands where we're at with this.
Your worship, I can jump in, give James a break. Yeah, in this particular case, you know, part of the problem we have is, of course, the village has hazardous areas within the village, and we'll be moving in, obviously, if we were there to begin the cleanup. And really, there's no kind of special dispensation in this particular case, you know, to allow people within that site when, you know, you have to wear masks and there may be other requirements. So, you know, what we would like to do is get back to the bishop and say, you know, hate to say no, but of course they'd have the same restrictions of any contractor or anyone else who enters that area, because it is at this point in time there's hazards around it. So you know, we'd have to restrict the access to their property, but we'd also have to restrict that no one could go anywhere else in the village. So at this point in time, it's really hard to give a definitive thumbs up to allowing that. But as time goes on and the circumstances change and the debris removal, you know, we could reassess that as time goes on.
Thank you.
Won't they need water and power if they want to use the buildings?
Yep.
And is there water and power for the parish hall?
I don't believe, maybe
There won't be water.
there won't be water.
There'll be power,
There's no power yet either.
but there's a pole apparently located not too far from there, but
Two
yeah.
poles away.
And then you've got sewer as well.
So it's not really operational, Councillor?
Yeah, so they were, from what I understood, they were looking at June or am I off on that? I kind of understood they were looking at getting in there for June. Maybe just before June. It's only the end of February. Maybe things will be better. Could we simply indicate that we hope to be able to assist the bishop and her flock with getting back in, but at this time we can't promise anything?
Yeah, Your worship, that's the general response. I see James's camera's on. We'll see if something else is gonna.
I just wanted to confirm that there is no water or sewer at the site right now. That's been, well, the sewer would work, but there is no water at the site. And until the critical infrastructure upgrades have been completed, there would be no anticipation of providing water to that area. And then the power is approximately 2 power poles away, the closest source right now. So we would need to discuss with BC Hydro to see what the availability to bring power to that location are. So I think Councillor Gray's point of looking into it with a longer term viewpoint does make sense, but it would be very difficult to allow that to occur in the short term.
My reason for bringing that up, and James, while I have you on the line, is because Canada Post is right near there as well. I mean, if we let Parish Hall in, why couldn't we let Canada people into Canada Post? Do you see what I mean? It's only like a block. So we could start sort of ending up having to tell people constantly no when if we just ask them to let us get a little more infrastructure in place. I mean, I hate to say no because it would be such a celebratory moment, but if there's no water, there's no power, there's no, barely sewer, you can't really use the building. So it doesn't seem that we should try and make any sort of promises that can't be kept at this point in time.
So, from what I'm hearing, we'll write a letter back to the bishop stating that at the present time, we can't allow people to re-enter the parish hall until certain criteria are met.
Yeah, and there would be, as Mr. Judy pointed out, there'd be an issue with fire protection. Okay. So we'll do that then, do correspondence with parish hall and let them know how council vision is moving forward.
Thank you. So then we're on to correspondence for information. And
Councillor Hayes, so moved.
I'll second.
all, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
So now we're on to reports from mayor and then councillors. I have been in contact with a number of people regarding the rebuild of Lytton and trying to make a plan. Like the Fraser Basin Council, like BC Hydro, and their staff. So besides that, I don't have too much to report. Councillor Hay.
Councillor Hay, busy last week. I was busy reading old bylaws, new bylaws, trying to make head or tails of what is best to get adopted for the rebuild. And I got home on Thursday night, had lots of calls. I had 14 visitors in and out of my place from Friday to Monday, and it was nice to be able to talk to people from all different walks of life. Some of those were non-residents, some were residents. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Not really a report, just a quick comment on the, sorry, let me get back to it here, on the new provincial plan. I was wondering if there's a couple of aspects that we might fall under for this, that we could possibly ask for some funding dollars, housing, clean energy, that sort of thing. Where would Terry or Leslie, would you guys know where we could start digging for funds under this new plan?
You're talking about the economic.
Yeah.
Okay. Not off the top of my head, but we can certainly look into it.
Yeah, there's a couple of aspects there that Lytton would certainly fall under. That if they have funding that's already been set aside, then maybe we can get some of that and help get some housing, rental housing in for Lytton. That would be good.
Thank you. So now we're on to item 11, reports from committees, council, and commissions. So 11.1 is the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. 11.1A, the Citizens Advisory Select Committee minutes. I'll make a motion to receive and file.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second one, February 16th, 2022 meeting report. Short meeting, two topics came up. One was on the terms of reference and the other was on communications, and subcommittee was struck and member McCann is chairing that subcommittee. And the answer to it will also be put into the terms of reference. Revised Citizens Advisory Select Committee terms of reference. I didn't get a chance to review the terms of reference due to the influx of people wanting to talk. I'll prepare and distribute to council a detailed report concerning the terms of reference, the overall performance to date of the committee, and recommendations to council by next Wednesday.
Thank you. So we do not have any new business, so we're on to a calendar of events. The Citizens Advisory Committee is meeting March the 2nd. Our next regular council meeting is March 9th. So those are the two outstanding events. So that ends the open portion of the regular council meeting. So we are now going to go take a 5-minute break and go into the closed meeting.
Sorry, Mayor, don't we
Yeah.
have something tomorrow?
Yeah, town hall.
The town hall tomorrow. Sorry, yes.
Okay. It was in my calendar.
Yes, we have a town hall meeting tomorrow night. Sorry, yes. The town hall, in our agenda package, there's a town hall meeting to be determined.
That's the
I assume
next
that's
one.
the next one.
Yeah.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. The closed meeting, there were some items to be released from the closed meeting. You know, that council authorized staff to accept the ICBC settlement offers on the 2009 dock for $50,000 less the $300 deductible, $49,700 for the 2004. Less the $300 deductible, and that staff was directed to obtain quotes to replace the destroyed vehicles, with a report back to council seeking authorization in advance to purchase the replacement vehicles and attached equipment. Those were carried. And that council authorized the village of Lytton to enter into a memorandum of understanding for information sharing with Lytton First Nation. And that I had been authorized to sign it. And so we're going to head into the closed meeting under section 90-1A, personal information about an identifiable individual. 91-C, labor relations, and 91-J, information that is prohibited.
Councilor Hay, I make a motion to move into closed meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second.
So now we'll take a 5-minute break. Sorry.